Well, welcome to the Industry Transformation Coalition's author lecture series. I am Bruce Dane, the Executive Director of the ITC. This is our first author interview in a series of 6. We are thrilled to have Ted Rubin here to launch this summer-long event. Ted is the author of the books Return on Relationship, How to Look People in the Eye Digitally, and The Age of Influence, as well as an accomplished entrepreneur, consultant, communicator, and social media influencer. Ted will be interviewed by New York-based journalist Abe Najad. A couple of housekeeping items. This event is scheduled to last approximately an hour, and we will have a Q&A session at the last 10 minutes of the program. So you can submit your Q&A questions on the chat function in the Zoom app. And finally, we will be posting this interview in 2 different sections tomorrow afternoon on the Industry Transformation website. So you can look for it and you can take notes, or you can just see it tomorrow. And finally, we are going to turn it over to Abe Najad and to Ted Rubin.
Bruce, thank you so much for that introduction. It's good to be in the presence of the ITC. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later. And a lot of exciting things happening there, particularly with Ted Rubin. Ted, really great to speak to you today. I'm excited that we have a whole hour to actually pick your brain with a number of questions that I have. But before we do that, if I could just leave the floor open to you, you can say a few words and we get right into it.
Thank you so much, Abe. I'm really excited to be here. This organization, the Industry Transformation Coalition, it's an interesting one because it brings together diverse partners and people. The speakers that are going to be a part of this lineup are really different. And, the way I see it, that is what is really needed. I know that these concepts are not easy to focus on all the time, especially in a pandemic. But if you're not going to get smarter now as communications people, you're just going to be left behind. Change is hard work. Transformation is hard work. It doesn't come easy. Even the sponsors are ones that are trying to either turn around a big issue or turn their companies around. I, for one, applaud the sponsors for coming together for something that's about more than spin. It's about engagement and learning to do it differently. That is what my book is about and what the smartest companies are embracing. Our digital reality does not mean less human. It in fact means just the opposite. There are people out there that spend more time hating on companies than solving problems or helping them solve their problems. Let's get real. If we want to see people, look them in the eye digitally. It means more than just anonymously hating a company. It means offering to get something done. And on that note, I know Bruce Dane, who is responsible for putting this whole together, loves my hats. So I just wanted to kick this off with one of my hats and then throw it back to you, Abe.
Well, see,
Ted, you just look better in hats than I do, and so that's where that's where I have this little bit of jealousy. And also, before Abe, Ted, thank you so much for those kind words about the ITC. It means the world to me, and it means the world to our members. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So Ted, well, first of all, I don't have a hat, but I'm not really a hat guy, so it wouldn't have looked good on me anyway. So, but no, Ted, it fits you. It fits you well. Okay, let's get right into it. So Bruce at the top of the program talked about several of your authored books. One of those was Return on Relationship. First of all, I went sort of through your CV, if you will. I love the fact that you're kind of creating this conduit between, society and relationships, and then kind of bridging that towards how that can help you sort of in the business world as well. That, IQ versus EQ or emotional intelligence that people don't talk about as much as they should anyway. So again, setting the stage for this interview, what does return to relationship really mean to you?
Well, I want to start with a simple definition. So return on relationship, ROR, which is obviously return on relationship for short, or the hashtag I use, RONR, simply put, is the value that's accrued by a person or brand due to nurturing a relationship. ROI is simple dollars and cents, but ROR is the value that's both perceived and real that will accrue over time through connection, trust, loyalty, recommendations, and sharing. And like you mentioned, my mission has been for so many years to help, is to help companies use this to define and educate themselves, brands, and people about the importance of creating authentic connection, interaction, and engagement. So just to take it one step beyond, just what we were talking about is that for me, the relationship is the basis of everything. It takes away the commodity aspect of so much business, and it brings in the personalized aspect. And very often, and I want to set the stage for this right here. People often think I'm talking about ROR versus ROI. I am not. ROI is very important. What I'm talking about is that ROI in every case will enhance your ROR, will enhance your ROI, and if you wrap it around what you're doing.
Well, let's maybe dig down a little bit deeper on that. If let's say I'm a sales guy and I sell printers. I know it's a little archaic, but I sell printers. How can I be a better salesperson by bridging this gap between the ROR and the ROI?
Well, the bottom line is you're selling a commodity. I mean, there's a million printers out there. I mean, maybe less now than there were a few years ago, yet we're showing our age here a little bit talking about printers. Right. But they're still out there. But what happens is it's very difficult to compare yourself to a competitor just based on the technology or the exact spit out of ROI or the way the numbers work out. And usually there's so many different formulas that anybody that shows up in front of a buyer can pitch the right story. The key is when you connect with people. So I'm going to share a story with you. I'm an older guy. When I graduated college in 1980, we didn't have all this technology we had today. There are no social media platforms. My job was, I was in a sales job, and my job was to get appointments. And at the end of the first week, my dad calls me up and he says, Ted, did you get your first appointment? I said, I did. He goes, when is it? I said, next Wednesday. He said, what time? I said, about 10 a.m. He goes, well, when are you going to get there? I said, I don't know, about 5 or 10 to 10. He goes, no. Get there an hour before. Walk around the neighborhood. See what restaurants are there. Go into the building. Look at the board and find out what other companies in the building. Talk to people on the elevator. Get to the office early and see if his or her assistant can allow you into the office. Look at what diplomas are on the wall, what photos are on the wall. Is this person a fisherman? Is he a grandfather or a father? Find points of emotional connection so you can talk about something other than the sale. Now, back then, if you remember, or maybe not, we had something called microfiche. There was no social media platform. The industry directories, and if you were lucky, they listed a minor item about somebody you were going to see. So you had to do these things. Now there's no excuse. I can't tell you how many meetings I go to. And the person I'm with supporting as a consultant or as a business advisor, the first question they ask the person they're trying to sell something to is, how long have you been here? Seriously? You didn't look at LinkedIn? Now, there's very different ways to approach this. If you want to engage and build a relationship, the proper way to do this is to know how long they've been there. And then very often you're going to have one or two approaches. One is, wow, I see you just joined here. Is there anything I can do to support you and help you along your way? Now, to take the reverse thing, wow, you've been here for 14 years. You can teach me so much about this company. I'd like to learn. These are the ways that now you look people in the eye digitally, that you go and see the information that's available about them. You prepare yourself to talk about things that are important to them. And I remember myself in later sales days, like literally being in an office with someone staring at me and me trying every single way to get the conversation to something that's more emotional, that's more connected. And when you do, that's when you know you win. Now, it doesn't end there. So to talk about the whole relationship or return relationship aspect, too many people now make that initial connection. They never follow up. They do nothing but try to sell something the minute they connect with you on LinkedIn. They don't, I mean, have you ever gotten this one? And anybody in the audience, you ever gotten this one? Someone connects you on LinkedIn. You graciously accept for whatever reason you did. And the first question they ask you is, so Ted, what do you do? Mm-hmm. What do I do? Like, first of all, why did you connect with me in the first place? Second of all, you didn't read my profile. So I think that today, so many people ignore these things that you really show who you are when you take concern. I keep notes. I have forever. I used to have the little date books, and every Christmas when we were off for a week, I would update with the birthdays and the anniversaries and things of people coming up. Now this stuff is available to you, and people still ignore it, or they just check the box, the little happy birthday. I send a personal message to everybody. Yes, I use similar quotes, but I personalize it. I add their name. If there's someone I knew better than someone else, I write something. If they reply to me, I don't ignore the reply. I reply to the reply. I don't accept any LinkedIn connections unless there's a personal note attached. And if it's someone that I really want to be connected to, I'll write back to them and question like why they're connecting, who do they know, why have they reached out to me? And I do not accept a LinkedIn connection without writing back a note of thank you and something personalized. I learned a great lesson in 1997 from Seth Godin. So I worked for Seth in 1990 at Yoyodyne, his startup that got acquired by Yahoo. But when I went to work there, this was my first digital age job. And I was desperate to find information about Seth. And he had written a bunch of books before he wrote his first real bestseller called Permission Marketing, which he wrote when I was sitting across from him. But he wrote books, self-help books, and he wrote books about jobs. He wrote books with Jay Levinson. And one of his tips, which to this day I teach to mentees or to students when I speak, is he said, every time you meet with somebody, bring 3 thank you notes with you. It's already stamped, already addressed. To the 3 people you're probably going to end up meeting, because the odds are if things go well, you're going to meet more than just one person. He goes, and write to each of them and mention something about business, something about personal, and some thought of yours that you think might be relevant to their business. And sit downstairs, and before you leave that building, you drop that in the mailbox and they'll have it on their desk the next day. This is building, this is engaging with people. This is building relationships. And again, people think building a relationship is clicking a button. I like to jump off a stage when I'm speaking to an audience. Boy, remember those days? I miss it. And I would be told, don't get off the stage, you know, the production guy, don't get off the stage. And I jump off the stage, I walk up to someone in front of the audience, I shake their hand, I say, are we friends now? And they would look at me and they were a little puzzled, like, oh no, we're not friends. This is an invitation to become a friend. This is how a door gets open. And we have so many doors open to us that we don't step through. And if we did, this would be the sales tip, that when you walk in and you can talk about your weekend, you can talk about skiing, you know something about their kids, I promise you, not every time, there are going to be times you're going to lose the deal, but you will break through the clutter and you will stand up and come out in front. And for me, my dad taught me this as a kid. And I was in sales for the better part of my beginning of my career. And I never made as many calls as anybody else. I never worked quite as many hours as the crazy guys that stayed till 10 o'clock, but I always made more sales.
So Ted, you know, people that are watching this or that are going to watch this, not everybody's a Ted Rubin, right? So, you know, are you born knowing how to cultivate relationships? Do you have to learn this skill? Are there people out there that might be absolute whizzes at business, ones and zeros in the bottom line and generating revenue, but absolutely not able to grasp the concept of the importance of building relationships? Again, can you teach this?
You can. This is absolutely teachable. As a matter of fact, this should be taught. So my concept is, I say, hire for passion, train for skills. So you can't, it's hard to teach general passion, okay? But you can teach people how to build relationships. I want to tell you something. I am not a natural at it. I'm not comfortable walking into a crowded room with people. I've taught myself how to do that. I've learned skills about how to get myself past that initial, oh, I don't feel like going, or walking in that room and just veering over to the bar and staying on the side and not joining conversation. I have to push myself for that. But I'll tell you that my dad taught it to me, and it wasn't easy. And don't think I was happy when he made me get out of the car and talk to people. Or my dad was the guy that would drive down the street and there would be garbage pails in the middle of the street in the neighborhood that we didn't even live near. And he'd stop the car, get out and put them on the side. And as soon as I got old enough to do it, he stopped explaining it to me and had me doing it myself. And now, literally just the other day on this trip, I'm up north in Virginia now from Florida. I stopped in Raleigh in the middle of a road because a cart came flying out from a hotel into the middle of the road. Everybody else is veering around it and doing things. I pulled my car, I stopped, I put on my flashers, I took it out, I brought it back up to the door. And to me, that's just something natural to do. So again, it's only natural, as we all know, practice, practice, practice. I'm at my high school wrestling coach and his wife are like second parents to me. I've known him. He was my junior high, my high school coach. I was captain my senior year. I've developed this amazing long-term relationship with him. And I just always remember him saying, you won't learn a move until you do it 1,000 times. Mm-hmm. And then it becomes something that's natural. And now he has a thing on his stairs, a sign that says, every step you take adds a second to your life. And I walk stairs 2 steps at a time, because in that wrestling room, he always said, you know, walk stairs, walk them 2 at a time, you'll always be in shape. So I think learning how to build relationships is a very similar thing. Mm. And don't think I don't get tired of it sometimes, but it's also become part of who I am. So number one is I automatically do it now, but more importantly, I don't feel right if I don't, because I know it's expected of me now in a very positive sense.
Yeah.
So yes, I think you can teach people these skills. I think they're learned, and it's like everything else. You have to have your mind open to learning and grasping these things in order to take them and apply them.
And like kind of like what your coach said, I think, Ted, it reminds me of a little bit of conditioning, right?
Yeah.
Just do it and do it again and again and again, and then perhaps it'll be easier, or at least you'll be good at it.
Right, and it can still be hard. I mean, look, we all work out and we do things, and then there's days we wake up and go, dude, I can't do this today. That doesn't mean you've lost it or you're not following that path.
Yeah.
It means that you're taking a rest that day, or you just have to re-inspire yourself a little bit. And a lot of it is about how I've learned a big part of this is how you set expectations for yourself. I tend to set way too high expectations. My goal has been to lower it more a little bit so that I don't disappoint myself as much.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe we can pick up on that a little bit later as well. That's an interesting point. Let's talk about an application of maybe some of your practices or some of your learnings. You talked about LinkedIn earlier and responding with messages to people wanting to connect with you. What's the importance of social media branding to you?
Okay, so I think of it, the word branding bothers me because it sounds very much like a marketing function. We sit in a room, we figure out our brand. For me, I think a better word is being yourself. It's letting people know who you are. The world has dramatically changed. So again, I'm 63. 1980, I come out of school. There were still business personas and work personas. There was still your work clothes and then your home clothes. That doesn't exist anymore. And beyond that, people don't respect, and I don't mean this in a negative way, they don't respect that borderline. They want to know who you are as a person, and they don't have to agree with you. They don't have to think the same way you do. They just want to know what's important to you. Some of it can be non-controversial things. Some of it can be what sports you like, what you do. What do you do on the weekends? Like, are you with your kids? Is that all you do? Do you run? Because again, in a very disconnected world, it helps us become connected. There's so many more things we're all doing now that it's made it hard. Like there's this old, I don't know if it's psychology or business, but this old rule that you can only know certain amount of people. Like I think the number was 150. That can be your total range. So all these platforms with 1,000 connections are nonsense. I disagree because I believe that even if that 150 is really a brain function, that 150 shifts constantly. So like the old Google circles, when they try to become a social company, you have different circles where you bring people and then they overlap each other. And also at one point you're focusing on, or your camp friends, another time you're focusing on business, another time you have all three things combining. Then there's also times of life, periods of life, seasons where you focus on different people. So I just think that, these are very important concepts. And you need to expand on them. You need to allow yourself to realize that you can't just engage with someone once and have a relationship. And another thing I like to do is I serendipitously reach out to people because like you and like everybody else in this audience, I do have more contacts than I could possibly keep up with on a regular basis. So I have certain standard practices, whether it's birthdays or anniversaries, which let me reach out to people that sometimes I rarely reach out to. But then I find I always serendipitously try to find articles. I have a whole separate newsletter called the Return on Relationship newsletter, where I serendipitously share somebody else's content every week. And what it does for me is it's a benefit for me too. It's not just about sharing and making Abe feel good. It's that I had to seek out Abe's content in order to share it, which means once a week or once for a long time, for 6 weeks in advance, I'm out there searching for people that I want to know better, who I want to see what they're publishing, who I want to support. And I'm proactively doing that.
Ted, and I'm going to go a little off script here. You mentioned earlier about you not sort of being inherently this person that was the sociable person, and that you sort of cultivated this over time. And I'm recalling my chiropractor, who's a chiropractor, sort of a celebrity chiropractor. He has a YouTube channel and he has hundreds of thousands of hits and so forth. He told me that he does 140 tweets back to his followers, or LinkedIn messages back to his followers, 140 each morning before he even comes into the office. I thought, wow, that's pretty laborious. But he told me, and I'm just remembering this based on what you said earlier, he told me there was a point in his career where he just turned a corner. And he realized that this is not work for me. This is my brand. This is my life. And if I don't exude this and people don't see that I'm this kind of person, and I am, then it's, it's detrimental to the brand at the end of the day, but not in a business sense, but just sort of in a personal way. Again, I only mention that because it reminds me of what you said earlier. Was there a point in your career, in your life, and was it a long time ago or recent, where you turned that corner?
Well, first of all, you're a very skilled moderator, Abe. I want to be, for the audience, I want to throw out kudos because you very gently brought me back to the branding concept, which I went off a little bit out on my question. My head's like a Twitter feed, so sometimes I run off in other directions. So for me, I would say the real turning point, I always did this, but how much could we do this before these platforms existed? Like how much brand building could you do, or even who you are as a person building could you do before we had the ability to reach so many people? So for me, the turning point was when I discovered Twitter in 2008. And I realized, first of all, everyone sees, if you check me out or you follow me, I write a lot, but I'm not a natural writer either. I write what I'm passionate about. And I like to talk, but long form writing was just never comfortable for me. So I discovered this tool where I could write 140 characters. And not only did people like it, they gave me cheers for getting a point across in such a short, amount of letters. So for me, Twitter was when I really recognized that I could build my brand on a daily basis. I could connect with people. And very similar to your chiropractor, it started out as, oh my God, I got to keep doing this. And it became, it's who I am. It is not an effort. Every once in a while, people look at me and go, what are you doing? It's your vacation. Relax. Put the damn phone down. And I'm like, this is how I relax. So I just lost a dear friend, and people were, why are you writing so much? I'm like, because sharing is the way I heal. And connecting is so important to me that like your chiropractor, a friend or mentor, I'm just like him. And I have I don't do 140 tweets in the morning, but I do a dozen other things, whether it's connecting for people on their birthdays, whether it's serendipitous outreaches, whether it's making sure a few tweets get out there, because I send out a lot of tweets with things that I've devised or one-liners or things that I think are important, and I know that they get me back engagement immediately. So I know if I just see the social world with those posts in the morning, I will get back the beginning of engagement, which allows me to exercise what I'm best at, which is my passion for answering things. For when I see something that I love, my blog posts come from comments I write on somebody else's blog where I'm either fully agreeing with them or totally disagreeing with them. And as a little tip to your audience for content production, I save all of those comments in a file, and then I turn them into blog posts, into tweets, into Facebook and LinkedIn posts.
And 3 books.
And that's
Right.
And that helps me build my brand. It helps me let people know who I am. Everything I write, everything I do is from my heart. It's from who I am. I'm always sharing stuff that's about me. My blog, many people don't realize my main blog is tedrubin.com. But if you look at it, when you click there, it has a title. It's called Straight Talk. And a lot of people miss that, and I understand that, but I wanted it to be Ted Rubin because I wanted to brand it with me, where I would always own it. But it's Straight Talk, which means I tell it like it is. I tell it what's important to me. Yes, I try to be professional. Sometimes I fail, but I do my best. I try to be good to people, but sometimes being good to people means something a little different than just being nice or kind. And that is my brand. So I'm going to share something a little bit earlier because I think it wraps up this question really well, that I'm going to share again at the end. It's that a brand is what a business or a person does. A reputation is what people remember and share. So when you're building your brand, what you're actually doing, and this is why you have to take it from statements to action, is you are showing people what your actions are. You're showing people who you are, and that's what they will share. Like I said, a brand is what people remember. You know, what you do, everything about you is what people remember and share. And you'll find something I learned early on in social media is that if you build an audience and you show them who they are, when you get attacked, your followers are the ones who will be the first ones to stand up for you.
Interesting. So when you say look at people in the eye digitally, is that what did you just describe that to us? Is that what that means?
Well, I think a lot of what I said was referring to looking people in the eye digitally, like when you go into meetings, when you're connecting with people on LinkedIn. So one of the things I've been saying for a long time, and I strongly reiterated it this year, especially, you know, coming out of that big year of the pandemic into this next year and hopefully coming out, I've been saying that 2021 needs to be the year and beyond this year of doing what I call looking people in the eye digitally. You know, the last few decades have made us lazy communicators. We can just click a button and we think we're connected. And most often, truth be told, everybody out there, most of you don't even pay attention to who we are talking to other than via that data we collect.
Mm-hmm.
And companies are so hung up on data. They've got too much data. They make such poor use of it. And even that's a maybe, because there are so many companies that don't even use the data they collect. And in my opinion, in order to fix this and to really start to benefit from all these social relationships, both individual and as companies, we need to start looking people in the eye digitally, understanding who they are. I believe we don't need to fit our world into digital. We need to fit digital into our world. And if you don't mind, I'm going to finish that with a story. I like stories. So like most of you guys probably, and women, we all got it from different people. We were getting of that age. We were going on our first date. Mom and dad sat us down. For me, it was really more my mom. And she said, son, you have to look at them when you talk to them. If you're going on a date, if you want a second one, don't look at every girl or everybody that walks in through the door. Don't be paying attention to every other table. Focus on the person in front of you. And then my dad threw in a very positive way. He goes, look, this is going to pay off for you in business too, because people like to know that you're paying attention to them. I think one of the superpowers in personal and in business are those people that can talk to you and you feel like, and the room is packed, and you feel like you're the only person in the room. Okay, I don't know if you guys know Chris Gardner. He's a famous speaker. Chris has this remarkable capability of making every person he's speaking to like they're the only one. My friend who just passed away running in the Blue Ridge Mountains, everyone talked about how superhuman he was and all these outdoor adventures he did. You know what his superpower was? His superpower was making every friend feel like they were his best friend, and nobody else feeling jealous or bad about it. So my mom gives me this talk, and she tells me, like, you got to pay attention. If you're looking at other people, it's not going to work. And that's a lesson I've taken through my whole life. And a lot of people we know teach us that lesson, but we tend not to listen to it. You've got to listen to that lesson. So that's what comes into looking people in the eye digitally, because it's so easy digitally. Like, we're on a Zoom and I can have another page up and I can be reading something. And, you know, a lot of us do this when we're only one of 20 and we're not the one talking and it's not really important. But when you're actually engaging, like I'm engaging with Abe right now, pay attention. Look at him. See also his body motions, the facial expressions he's making. We have the advantage to do that now from a distance. And don't waste that opportunity.
Yeah, interesting.